everyone, Jane here. Thank you for watching my video today. Welcome back if you are a returning viewer, and welcome if you're new to my channel. Today I fancy doing something really grungy and industrial with lots of texture and layers. I'm working in the Dina Wakley ledger journal, which I love using for these sorts of pages, and I'm starting off just by adding a bit of washi tape to the centre of the pages just to help prevent any leakage through to others. Now I will list everything in the description box below as I usually do, so if you want to know what I've used, please do check there, and I will let you know as I'm going through as well. Now I wanted to add some collage tissue as my first layer for this spread, and I'm using this Tim Holtz tissue paper, or tissue collage I should say, and it is called Archives. It comes in sheets and you get a couple of each design, multiple designs, so it's a really nice sort of set. It's one that's full of writing and numbers and vintagey type things. So I'm using the Distress matte medium, the Distress collage medium in the matte version, and I'm just getting right down to the end of this pot. I did think I was going to finish this pot off today, but I didn't. I still got some left. So I'm just tearing the papers just to get some nice edges, and when you add this to the page and you put the medium down, and I put it on the page on the back of the tissue and then on the top as well, just to seal it in, you get a lovely see-through sort of look to the tissue, so it looks like it's almost as though it's been stamped onto the page, but it's a really lovely effect. So I'm just adding little bits here and there. Now in this particular spread, the right hand side of the page has actually got no text on it, because this journal from Dina Wakley is a reproduction of an actual vintage ledger. And so obviously in the ledger itself, there were some pages that didn't have anything on them because they hadn't filled those ones up. So there is some text printed onto the left-hand side. So I decided to keep most of my collage over onto the right-hand side, because that was where it was blank already. Whereas on the other side, there's that text, which is already making a lovely background anyway. So I just carry on adding bits and pieces. I added a little bit of the washi tape in as well, and then I will move on to my next stage. Now in between the last part and this part, I did actually also add a coat of transparent gesso to the page, because I knew that I wanted to do a technique in a moment using the stencils, that I needed to have the gesso to help it to work, but because I wanted to still see what I'd already stuck down, I needed to have it as transparent. Now I'm using the Indigo Blue Junk and Disorderly paints here. They are an acrylic paint, and the first colour was Warm Tan that I've just used. I'm using a wet wipe as well, just to spread some of that paint around, because I found that when I put it down, and I decided today I was just going to use my fingers. You do not have to use your fingers. You could use a brush, a sponge, anything you like, but I was just in the mood to be really messy and grungy. Now this next colour is called Leather Corset, and I'm putting it down, and then before it has a chance to dry, I am wiping some of the paint away through the stencil with a wet wipe, and I'm using that same wet wipe each time, because it doesn't matter. In fact, you don't want it to be too wet. In fact, I could have probably got away with leaving that wipe out a little bit longer just to dry out, and then I'm using it to add a little of that colour around the page as well. So once that's dried off, I'm going to then add in another colour, and I can't remember what the colour is. So like I said, just check in the description box below, because I can't remember what it's called. It's a green one. It's probably called Olive or something. I don't know, I'm guessing now. So now I'm going to do exactly the same with this paint. Now this stencil is from Memory Box. It's called Mesh, so I will list that in the description. The other stencils I used today, I can't remember where they're from, what company they're from. Unfortunately, I think one was from a magazine, like, you know, when you get some free products with the magazine, and the other one I can't remember. So I'm also using what is left on the stencil to sort of print onto the page as well, just to add a little bit more texture in places. And because there's like paint on that wipe, that's coming through as well. Now this is the other stencil, I can't remember. Now I haven't used this particular Crackle paste from my stash for a long time, so it was quite thick and I was a bit concerned that it's so old it might not crackle, but it just shows you. Now this is a Decoart Crackle paste and it has done remarkably well. I think I must have had it for at least 5 years, and it has been opened and it has been used. It has thickened up, but it's not dried out. So, you know, it may be that I'm just keeping it in a really good environment where it's not causing that, or it may just be a really good texture paste. So I'm adding it on, then I'm using what's left from my spatula just to wipe around the pages, and then I will leave this to dry on its own. I do not force dry Crackle paste because they crackle the best when you leave them, and it did crackle. Where the thinner areas were, you get a lovely fine crackle, and where the thicker areas are, you get a thicker, sort of more bulky sort of looking crackle. Now I was going to use paint to colour, and then I thought, no, actually I'm going to put a different medium on. So I'm using the Gilding waxes from Finnabair, and the colours are Peacock and Firebird. And I put a little bit down on my acrylic block there, just to sort of keep the mess to a minimum, and also so that I don't put too much on. I tend to put a bit on my finger and then dab it off before I add it, because otherwise sometimes you can get a bit, you know, clumpy. Clumpy, is that the word? Clumpy on your project. So the first was the Peacock, and now we're going for the Firebird, which is a really lovely sort of orangey but metallic. I think both of these are metallic colours. I know that the Gilding waxes come in a range. Some of them are matte, some of them are metallic, some of them are pearl. I have mostly, I think, matte, and then a few metallic. I might have one pearl, I'm not sure, but they are really nice waxes. They are solvent based, so you do need to clean up with isopropyl alcohol, but that does mean they are permanent once they are dry. So, you know, they're not going to wash off with water off of your project. Not that that was really a problem for me in this particular spread. Now, I felt that this spread really needed a bit of lightness added back in. I wasn't quite sure how to, so I decided just to go with some white splatters. So I'm using the Winsor & Newton drawing ink to do this. It does need a good mix, I find, with these inks, especially the white ones, just to get them mixed up. Now these images I had cut from some of the Maremi small art books. The figure and the bottles come from Industrial Fashionistas, and the window comes from the Industrial Bits and Bobs. So I'd cut them out in advance because I wanted to mount them onto some white cards to make them a little bit more like an actual ephemera element type thing, rather than putting them right onto the page as really flat collage. And I put a little bit of thread down, just I wanted something just in the background. In hindsight, I think I might have put a bit more down, but I just went with what I was doing at the time. So I'm sticking these down with my Pinflair Glue Gel, which is what is in the syringe. You decant it from the tube. And that's a really good one for if you've got lots of texture, because it's quite a thick glue. It then molds to what you're sticking it to, rather than, you know, making things stick above them. So it's a really good one if you've got a lot of texture. And I'm just adding some Stabilo Aall pencil, a black one, just along the bottom to give a bit of a shadow to show where the elements would be stood. And then also I felt that I needed to replicate that on the other page, because I just felt that it needed a little bit of shadow as well. So underneath the window, and then just around the sentiment, which comes from one of the Lemon Creation books. Sentiment books. And finally, I'm just adding some highlights with the Copic Acrea in the Snow White. So thank you ever so much for watching my video today. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, it would be fabulous if you could hit that subscribe button as well. And until the next time, bye bye.